up, everybody? My name is Brad, and welcome back to the channel. It is now officially summertime. Yesterday, the 21st, was the first official day of summer, the summer solstice. So it's time to get outside, time to watch baseball, representing the Yankees, cook out, go hiking, go to the pool, all that kind of fun stuff in the sweltering heat we have here in Kentucky. But it's also time for summer reading. My kids are doing the summer reading program at the library. And that's what today's video is about. I'm going to be recommending some horror books for you to read throughout the summer. Some of these books actually take place during the summertime. Others just evoke that feeling of summer. Maybe they take place during hot weather, that kind of thing. But all of them are perfect reads, in my opinion, to read throughout the summertime. And now, a lot of these books are ones that, not the big names, it's not Stephen King's It or Boy's Life by Robert McCammon, because a lot of those are probably on other horror recommendation videos for summer reading. So I'm trying to do something different, like I always do. Maybe some books that you haven't read before. Definitely maybe some books you probably haven't heard of before. Get some new books in your life other than the tried and true ones that everyone probably recommends in their videos. So I have, I think, 10 or 11 books that I have read that I'm going to recommend to you guys I think would be perfect summer reads. And then at the end of the video, I think I've chosen 5 books. I went on Twitter the other day because I noticed my list, I did not have very many women authors on this list. So I went to Twitter and asked for some horror recommendations for books that take place during the summer or have those summertime vibes written by women authors. I had a whole bunch of recommendations, and I chose 5 of them that I'm going to talk about at the end of the video that I'm going to try to read this summer, and we'll see how that turns out. I think summer ends, September 21st, somewhere in there. I might be way off, but I think that's somewhere in there is close to the end of summer, maybe. So I've got a while to squeeze in these 5 different books that were recommended to me. So we'll go ahead and dive into it. I'll go ahead and take my glasses off so I don't have those on the whole video. These first 10 or 11 books are ones that I have read that I'm recommending that you should read during the summer. So first up is The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. This is a book that I have gushed about on the channel for a while now. I absolutely loved this book. I can't remember, it was definitely in my top 3 favorite reads from last year. It might have been number 2, I don't remember for sure. But this book, it's genius in my opinion. It completely blew me away. There are all kinds of twists and turns. It's basically sort of a puzzle box mystery thriller book. And there were so many revelations in here that I did not see coming, that each time something happened, my jaw just dropped and nothing felt like it came in out of left field. It all made sense within the story, and it felt like everything was tied up in a nice, neat little bow by the end of the story. I don't want to say too much about the book. I don't want to give too much away because it's definitely one I think you should go into as blind as possible. But basically we have these multiple different perspectives. We're following these different characters. And in the past, these 2 sisters, the younger sister disappears. She's sort of kidnapped while they're at this on vacation, sort of this beach area, and that kidnapping, the disappearance of the younger sister, basically destroys this family. It falls apart, and we fast forward to the future. The other sister has grown up now, and she's still trying to figure out what happened to her sister. We don't know if she was murdered, just kidnapped, a body was never found. So that's one of the perspectives. One of the other perspectives is a possible suspect, someone who was suspected of maybe kidnapping the young girl back in the day. So we get his perspective. He lives in the last house on Needless Street. There's a person, he has a pet cat. That's one of the perspectives throughout the book. And other than that, I don't really want to say too much more about it, but we sort of unwrap this mystery of this kidnapping of this young girl and what really happened to her. Was she murdered? Was she kidnapped? What really occurred with that mysterious disappearance? It's a fantastic read, stellar read. I highly, highly recommend it. Like I said, one of my favorite reads I read last year. One of my favorite reads I've read in quite a long time. But first up on the list is Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. Next up, this is one I just finished recently and I've also been gushing about. It's my favorite read, my favorite novel I've read so far this year. And that is Sunray Alice by Jeremy Hepler. This takes place mostly takes place during the summer of 1944. We're following a young 16-year-old Alice. She lives in Texas, and this is during World War II, and close to her hometown of Sunray, Texas, there is a Nazi prison camp. And during the summer, some of those prisoners escape, and Alice has some interactions with those prisoners over like a week's time during that summer of 1944. And she holds on to this secret that happened to her. And then we flash forward. She's like older now. She's in her 90s. She's sort of nearing the end of her life, and she has not told anybody this secret over the last 70 some odd years. And she's finally wanting to tell somebody before she passes on and keeps that secret. She takes that to the grave. She doesn't want to do that. She wants to pass on that secret of what occurred in 1944 during those 5 days during the summertime. This one isn't so heavy on the horror. It's more coming of age. There are moments of horror throughout it. But I likened it to Boy's Life by Robert McCammon. This coming of age story, it has this sort of magical realism element to it that I really enjoyed. It caught me off guard. I wasn't expecting it because it's very grounded. It's very realistic up until we get to that point. And then there's this bit of magic, this bit of fantastical element to the story that really added another layer of depth to it that I thoroughly enjoyed. But if you like Boy's Life by Robert McCammon, I highly suggest this one. I think you'll enjoy this one as well. This one is Sunray Alice by Jeremy Hepler. Next up, completely different type of book, is Maggots Screaming by Max Booth III. This book is absolutely deranged. It's bizarre. It's sort of delusional at times. But above all, it's absolutely hilarious. It's about this father and son, and they are digging up the ex-wife's sort of garden in their backyard. It takes place during the summertime in Texas, so it's just a sweltering heat, and they're digging up the old dead bushes in the garden, and what they uncover is 2 dead bodies. And the twist is that the 2 dead bodies are their dead bodies, so it's exactly them. It's like clones of them buried in the ground, and then it just gets bizarre and falls down this rabbit hole from there. I don't want to say too much more about the actual plot. But this book is absolutely hilarious. Some of the best dialogue I've read in a book in a long time. And Andy, one of the characters in here, the dad's best friend Andy, is one of my favorite characters I've read in a long time. He just had me laughing the whole time. Sort of reminds me of the King of the Hill characters, like Hank is his name, I think, and the young son Bobby. Sort of similar comedy to that, but it's full of this gross, gnarly body horror, lots of bodies decomposing, that kind of thing. A really fun read, a really nasty, gnarly, hilarious read. That is Maggots Screaming by Max Booth III. Next, this one, and I don't remember if this one is set during the summer. I feel like it was set during warmer weather, but there's a bit of a road trip in this book, and road trips make me think of summertime. And this is a True Crime by Samantha Kolesnik. This one is about a brother and sister, and they're in this really horrible, abusive relationship with their mom. Their mom is just this toxic woman, just does horrible, horrible things to the son and daughter. I think it's Susie and Lim are the 2 siblings' names. And they end up killing the mom, and then they go on this sort of murder spree, driving across the country, killing different people that they come in contact with. And on here, there's a blurb by Brian King that likens it to Jack Ketchum's The Girl Next Door. I've said this before, I have not read The Girl Next Door, so I cannot make that connection if that's viable or not. But it is very, very violent, very dark scenes in here, very mature type of stuff. It even has a plumbing Ketchum thing on the back. It's sort of meant to be like those old true crime newspaper magazine things, is what the cover looks like. But very much so, a very violent book, sort of like Natural Born Killers, if you've seen that movie. But the writing in here is fantastic. You really get involved with the characters and sort of their deranged mindset. And it really brings up the question of, are monsters born like a serial killer? Are they born that way, or are they made to be that way based on their environment, circumstances, things that have happened to them? Sort of raises those types of questions. But it's a very fantastic read. This was Samantha's debut novella. I think it's a novella. It's pretty short. It's only about 150 pages. But yeah, fantastic read. Highly suggest you check this one out. And again, there's that road trip, and that for me, that just makes me think of summertime. This is True Crime by Samantha Kolesnik. Up next, and this one has summer in the title, so of course it's a perfect summer read. This is Jedi Summer by John Bowden. This is another coming-of-age tale, and this one's sort of a story of, it's almost autobiographical, so it's a story of taking bits and pieces from John's life and his younger brother's life through the summer of, I think it's 1983, the year that Return of the Jedi came out. And it's this little, it's a cohesive story, this overarching story, but it's these little vignettes, these little different stories that tie all together. Like I said, coming of age, again, very reminiscent of Boy's Life by Robert McCammon. But John Bowden, I've said it before, he has prose magic. His prose is just magical, it's lyrical. He is one of the best prose writers I have read since starting this channel, since discovering indie horror. His writing is gorgeous, it's fantastic, it's lyrical, it's beautiful, and I don't think he gets enough recognition. Not enough people read his books. He truly has a magical ability to convey these emotions within you through his writing. It's just a beautiful story about relationship, this brotherly bond between an older brother and younger brother, and the trials and tribulations and hardships they go through growing up. And I love that it's set back in the 80s, back before cell phones and technology. You know, all the kids are staring at their tablets and watching TV today. You know, they're outside, they're riding their bikes, they're playing with their friends. It's a different time and place, sort of that magical type setting that has sadly sort of disappeared from what we have now, from what kids have now. But highly recommend this one. This one is one of my favorite novellas I've ever read. This is Jedi Summer by John Bowden. I think it's currently out of print, but it should be coming back in print with Cemetery Dance, I think later on this year, maybe in August or so, maybe around October. I think it's going to have the same Keelan Patrick Burke cover on there. But again, Jedi Summer by John Bowden. Highly, highly recommend you checking that one out. Next up is Juniper by Ross Jeffrey. This is book one and I think it's the Juniper series is what it is. And you can read them sort of in any order, but I recommend you start with Juniper. And this one is about a small town by the name of Juniper. And there's this drought, there's this scorching weather, and like all the crops are sort of gone bad. They can't grow anything. There's really not any water around. And it's sort of a poorer area in the American South, sort of ambiguous in the American South. And what happens in this book is, since there's sort of a food shortage, one of the people in town has a whole bunch of cats. And so they start breeding these cats and selling the cat meat to their neighbors around town. So they're eating cat, and this book, do I want to say this? I'll say it. This book has one of the best twists that I've ever read in a book. But you have to pay really close attention, because a lot of people that have read this book that I talked to about it, they did not understand what happened at the end. They did not catch the twist. But there are a few clues. It's brilliantly done, because it's not heavy-handed. He's not giving Ross Jeffrey, he's not showing all his cards. He's not giving away the twist. But there are a few clues here and there that lead you into realizing what happens at the end. It's a brilliant twist. Like I said, one of the best twists in a book I've ever read. But yeah, it's this weird little town in the American South where people are eating cat meat. And I think her name is Betty. She comes across this roadkill that looks like one of the cats. She takes it home, sort of nurtures it back to health. And it's believed that that is like sort of the stud cat, the tomcat that was breeding all the other cats so they could have this meat. And that's all I want to say about it. It's a very odd book, but it's very well done. And the second book in the series, not really summer related because it's raining the whole time, but Tome is amazing. And book 3 in the series, Scorched, Ross is done writing it, or he's writing it right now. I think he got finished with it, so that should be coming out soon. I think all 3 of them are coming out like special edition from Stygian Sky Media, I believe, with new covers and everything. But definitely check out Juniper. It's a weird little read, very fun read, and an amazing twist in that one. That's Juniper by Ross Jeffrey. Next up is The Elementals by Michael McDowell. This is like Southern Gothic horror. Takes place in Alabama, Arkansas. I think it's Alabama, not Arkansas, but Alabama, down along the coast. and there's these three houses on this sort of beachfront, and one of them has sort of been filled up with sand over time, sort of sinking into the sand. These dunes have come over it, and the family goes down there to the other house. They're all identical, and there's this sort of supernatural things that start to happen. One of the characters, the young daughter, starts to see sort of ghosts and things in the windows of the sand-filled house, and she goes on to explore and go in there, and then other things start to unravel. More pieces of the story start to fall into place. But this one, I picked this one because it's a fantastic Southern Gothic story, but it's in the sweltering heat of the Alabama summer, so definitely a great summertime read. I do have a full review for this one if you want to know more details about it. It's been a while since I've read it, so I don't remember too much about the actual plot. But I really want to check out more of Michael McDowell's work. I think I'm going to try to read his Blackwater series sometime soon. I've got it on audiobook. It's like 30 hours long. It's really long. But The Elementals, I think it's probably his most popular book, and it was a fantastic read. If you like Southern Gothic type of horror, definitely one you want to check out, and especially great to read in the summer. Like I said, it takes place in the Alabama summer, so they're all sweltering. There's no air conditioning in the house, so they're all drinking lemonade and tea and got their fans on the porch and stuff. It's a really fantastic read, and the characters are great. I listened to it on audiobook, and the audiobook narration was superb. So if you have a chance to listen to it on audio, I highly suggest you go that route. So that was The Elementals by Michael McDowell. Next up is To Offer Her Pleasure by Ali C. This one is one I read fairly recently, within the last couple of months. Maybe I read it last year, I don't remember. This one is about a teenage boy, and I can't remember, I think his father has passed away. He really misses his dad, and so he sort of goes in the basement and goes through his father's things just to sort of remember him by, and he comes across this weird, bizarre book that his father owned. And I think the writing in it, you can't really read it. It's all mixed match. It sort of moves around the page. And then after reading the book, sort of opening it, he sees this great horned sort of figure, this woman with these great giant antlers. And she sort of starts to talk to him, to convince him to sort of make sacrifices to her, to offer her pleasure in a way. And his mom's sort of a deadbeat mom. She's just off somewhere with her boyfriend, just left her son alone at home. It's a coming of age story as well, but it has really creepy factors with this supernatural demonic entity, this horned entity that is sort of haunting this boy and sort of demanding sacrifices from him that get even bigger and more intense as the story goes along. It's a quick read. It's a little novella from Weird Punk Books. I love the cover art on here. I think Don Noble did the cover art. Yeah, really fun, creepy read. That is To Offer Her Pleasure by Ali C. Next up, this one's different. This one is an anthology. So it's a collection of multiple stories from multiple different authors, and that is Worst Laid Plans, an anthology of vacation horror. This one is edited by Samantha Klesnick, who I talked about earlier, who wrote True Crime. It's got a foreword by Sadie Hartman, Mother Horror. And I don't know if all of the stories are set during summer, but pretty much all of them are. There's one that takes place at like Disneyland, one that takes place at the beach, some that take place while swimming in the water. There's a Gator Con in one of them, talking about alligators and crocodiles. One takes place in Cancun, one takes place in a cave. So they're all vacation themed, but they're not all beach themed, but they're all summer vacation themed. And there's a lot of stories in here. Some of the people you have in here, let me get to the table of contents. You have Greg Sisko, Asher Ellis, Haley Piper's in here, Waylon Jordan, V. Castro, Scott Cole, Patrick Lacey, Mark Wheaton, Laura Keating, just to name a few. This is a really fun anthology. Lots of great stories in here. Perfect for summertime, especially if you're outside doing things with the kids, or maybe you're at the pool and you only have a little bit of time to read. You can read one story, put it down, come back later, pick up another story to read. This one was a lot of fun. I think if I remember correctly, my favorite story in here was The Kukui of Cancun by V. Castro. That one was a lot of fun. Haley Piper's Unkindly Girls is a great story. Taylor Family Vacation 93, I think that's the one No, that's not the Disneyland one. That's one about a video camera. But the cool thing about this is they are actually making a movie out of some of these stories, an anthology type of horror movie. I think it's done filming already. If not, they're at the very tail end of filming. So I think that probably will be coming out maybe the end of this year, maybe beginning of next year. I don't know if it'll be called Worst Laid Plans or have a different title. But they picked 4 or 5 different stories out of this anthology, and they adapted them to film, which is really cool. I'm really excited to get to watch that and see how these stories translate to film. But this is Worst Laid Plans, an anthology of vacation horror. And next up is The Bowens Daughter by Andy Davidson. I can't remember if I read this, not last year, but I think I read it in 2020. Whatever year I read it in, it was my favorite novel I read for that entire year. Sort of like John Bowden, Andy Davidson's prose is just magical, it's beautiful, it's gorgeous, and it really immerses you within the setting. And this one, I think we're down in Arkansas, and so it's in the summertime in Arkansas. It's hot and sweaty and humid. We're along all the bogs and bayous and swamps and things like that. And his writing just really puts you in that setting. You can hear the mosquitoes, you can feel the sweat dripping down your back, you can feel the humidity, that oppressive heat. But we're following a young girl by the name of Miranda Crabtree, and her father has died, and she's sort of on her own, living out sort of in the swamp. She has this little, she has the boat, whatever those boats are called, with the big fan behind them. And what she does is she runs drugs for this sort of mad, crazy preacher whose church and sort of congregation is sort of fallen into ruin. And with the money she's able to get from running drugs, she is protecting this witch out in the swamp and this little boy who is sort of like this Mowgli type character who lives out in the swamp and stuff. She sort of takes care of him, has taken on sort of the parenting responsibilities of this young boy and protecting this old witch out in the swamp. And the preacher sort of is the antagonist. He's trying to hunt down the little boy for whatever reason. Miranda's doing whatever she can to protect the young boy and keep him safe, keep him secret. But it's beautifully written. I love any type of book, whether it's horror, non-horror, whatever it is, that is set in like the bayous and swamps and bogs. I don't know what it is about that setting, but that's one of my favorite settings to read about. And Andy Davidson, he just captured that magically. I felt like I was in that boat alongside Miranda, going up and down these back waterways and little canals and stuff in this swampy area. It's a fantastic read. I love the story. It's very much literary horror, reminiscent of sort of like a Stephen Graham Jones's The Only Good Indians. So if you like that type of writing, like The Only Good Indians, that type of storytelling, then I think you'll enjoy this one as well. This is The Bowens Daughter by Andy Davidson. And then the last one I have up on my list of recommendations is Skullface Boy by Chad Lutzke. And again, this is one, I don't know if it's set during the summertime, but I know part of it, it's sort of like another cross-country trip, another road trip type of book, kind of like true crime, even though they're vastly opposite ends of the spectrum from one another. I remember he's going through the Rocky Mountains at one point, Las Vegas, the desert. He's heading out to California. So it's this little boy, and like the title says, he's got a skull for a face. So he's different. He doesn't fit in. And he's just trying to find this connection. He lives in an orphanage, and he's just trying to find this connection with somebody, someone like him. Everyone's different. It doesn't matter what everyone else's gender is, or their skin color, or religion, or anything like that. He never quite fits in because he has a skull for a face. He's very unique. And while he's in the orphanage, like one of the people there tells him that back in the day in California, she remembers seeing someone like him. She remembers seeing a man that had a skull for a face. So he runs away from the orphanage and makes his road trip, hitchhiking his way across the states to California to see if he can maybe find this other person, this one other person he's only ever heard of that looks like him. It's a really sweet read. It's a great read. I love Chad Lutzke's writing. This might be my favorite Chad Lutzke book, and he said before that this is sort of semi-autobiographical in a way, that a lot of the events in here actually took place or actually happened to him in his life. But it's a great read. Like I said, it's another sort of hitchhiking road trip type of journey throughout the states heading towards California. Yeah, it's a great read. I would love to get a sequel to it. I don't know that it needs a sequel, but I would like to revisit the character again because it's a really unique character and a really unique story that I thoroughly enjoyed. That one is Skullface Boy by Chad Lutzke. All right, so those are all the books that I have read that I'm recommending. So these last 5 books are books that were recently recommended to me that I'm going to try to read over the summer. So first up, I'm probably going to butcher her name, but Tananarive Due, I hope I'm saying her first name correctly. Ghost Summer by Tananarive Due. This one is a short story collection, I believe. I don't know anything about it, but it came highly recommended. Multiple people recommended Ghost Summer by Tananarive Due. And she is an author that I've been wanting to check out for quite some time. So her book is on here, Ghost Summer. And like I said, I believe it is a short story collection. I'm assuming by the title, one of the stories is about a ghost and it takes place during the summertime. But that's the first one up. Next up is Sundial by Catriona Ward. We talked about her book, Last House on Needless Street, earlier in the video. This is another one I don't know anything about. I think I do know it. It's about dogs and it takes place in the Mojave Desert. Maybe. But other than that, I don't know anything else about it. And I want to keep it that way. If it's anything like Last House, I don't want to read a synopsis and give anything away for myself. So I'm going to go into that one as blind as possible. But I love the cover of this one, the blues and purples on the cover. It's a really beautiful cover. So that's up, Sundial by Catriona Ward. One that Haley Piper recommended to me was Camp Neverland by Lisa Quigley. This is part of the Rewind or Die series, I believe. I think it's number 11. I might be way off. It might be like number 29. I don't remember for sure. But it's part of the Rewind or Die series. It's really short. It was like 76 pages on Kindle. And this one, what was it? It was like a sleepaway camp, and I can't remember what they likened it to. It was like some comedy mixed together. But I think it's about a young girl that goes to camp, and then maybe murders start happening, or there's a killer on the loose, sort of like Jason Voorhees and what's the camp? Camp Crystal Lake. That's sort of the vibe it gave me. It might not be a serial killer, but I can't remember exactly what it said for sure. But Haley Piper recommended it, and I'm going to take Haley's word for it. That's a good story. That is Camp Neverland by Lisa Quigley. The next one is called Kismet. I think it's how it's pronounced, by Amina Akhtar. This one comes out later in the year in August, I believe. This one is about a woman from New York who sort of wants to change up her life. She goes to Arizona or New Mexico and goes on like this cleansing thing. She does like juice cleansing and yoga and that kind of thing. And then there are these dead bodies that start to pop up, or sort of these socialite health gurus are getting murdered out where she's at. And I guess she's trying to figure out who the murderer is or keep herself from getting murdered. It sounds interesting. I've never read anything by Amina Akhtar before, but I know Edward Lauren really loves her work, so I want to check that one out. And then the final one is the Hacienda by Isabel Canas. I'm probably saying her last name incorrectly. This one takes place right after the Mexican War, I believe. And it's about basically this hacienda, this haunted house, and what all has happened there. I love the cover for this one as well. This one came out fairly recently, but other than that, I don't know too much about it other than it takes place after the Revolutionary Mexican War. And it's about this haunted hacienda, this haunted house. But it sounds really interesting, the little bit I do know about it, and I love the cover on there. Those are 5 books that were recommended to me. I'm going to try to read throughout the summer. But hopefully you have gotten something out of this video. Hopefully one of these books has enticed you to pick it up and read throughout the summer. But that's all I have for you guys today. So if you've read any of these books, let me know what you thought about them down in the comments. If you have any summer horror book recommendations that you think I should read, let me know that down in the comments as well. That's all I have for you guys today. So thank you for spending your time with me. Again, my name is Brad, and I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.